I've now come to Luton General Cemetery. Right inside the gate is the war memorial to those who died in foreign lands. And on my right are two very large and elaborate memorials. The first one here on the front face is to Thomas Lye, and then on the nearer face is Margaret, the eldest daughter of Thomas and Anne Lye. And on the further of the two memorials, it's Anne, the wife of Alfred Edwin Atwood of Stanley House, Luton, and then Alfred Edwin himself lower down. A pair of graves in this double-sized plot. The one on the right is covered with ivy. The one on the left, quite elaborate design at the top, around the top, and the wreath with the ribbons. Edward William Crouch, who was suddenly called away, 1897, aged 56. And then his eldest daughter, Laura Mary, 1898, aged 20. And as we go down the memorial, we have other members of the family. A very solid memorial and a very clear inscription for Arthur Thomas Webster, and he was called to rest 1895, age 76, and then beneath that we have his widow, who died in 1905. Another very tall memorial in a darker stone, and this commemorates Asher John Hucklesby, 1908. For many years an alderman of the county and town councils, and 5 times mayor of this borough, he was deeply interested in the religious, educational and social life of town and county. And beneath that we have his wife Ellen, who died in 1929. Over at the back we have the grave of the Keynes. If we look on the left we have Lady Ella Sophia Smith Keynes and her son, and on the right we have Sir Thomas Keynes, 1953, aged 83, and another son beneath that. A very distinctive memorial and a very clear inscription. Harold and Marjorie White are buried here. With this stone, Peter, Jane and Penny and their families commemorate them. Simple but very effective. Edith Alice, the wife of H.C. Janes, and then their eldest son Clifford, sergeant in the RAF Volunteer Reserve, who gave his life for his country 1943, aged 30, and is interred at Misurata, Libya, and then reinterred at Tripoli. And then we've got underneath that Herbert Charles Janes, aged 92, Mayor of Luton in 1953, knighted 1954, and buried at Angmering. A little further along, our beloved son, Cyril Jack Rickson, who died as the result of enemy action, 1944, aged 46 years. On the corner of this path we have a memorial. This is the Reverend John Jordan Davies, who after a ministry of 17 years at Tottenham, 4 years at Bootle and 8 years at the old meeting, Luton, fell asleep in 1858, aged 52. The carving on here shows a woman reclining with a cross on her right arm, and the inscription beneath, Amos Bacchus, aged 46, 1865, and Elizabeth, his wife, and a few other names beneath that. But that's an interesting illustration. This one here has the lady bowed down with her hand to her forehead. She's picking up flowers. In fact, she's laying flowers on a grave, because behind that we can see the gravestone. The name is William Cochin Fouch, 1865, age 36. And beneath that we have his son, William Cochin Fouch. Another large one, Henry Blundell of Moulton Lodge, Luton, 1907. And then his wife, Sarah Whiting Blundell. This one commemorates another mayor of Luton. The name is Low Giddings, Justice of the Peace and Mayor of Luton, 1900. He died in 1925. And his wife Emily. A rather elegant angel holding a branch of leaves, and the inscription difficult to read, but at the bottom we see the name William George Lacey. There are other names on that pedestal. Next to it is this rather unusual statue. It looks like a knight with some sort of armour on, and seems to be holding a sword up as an offering. I think it's a sword, or that has something wound around it. The inscription, unfortunately, is impossible to read. It's completely gone on the base of this one. But a very unusual bit of sculpture. A very distinctive design and quite unusual. The name is Albert Wilkinson. And I suspect down here on the base we've got a silhouette of him, although it's rather worn now. Very distinctive. Two angels over the epitaph for Isaac Levi, the beloved husband of Sarah Ashton, who died in 1929. And beneath that we have Sarah. Well, that's quite an unusual design. An elaborate cross, and on the base we read it's Arthur John Leopold Evans, for 9.5 years surveyor of this town. But there's quite a lot of intricate carving on this memorial. I'll close up a little bit. Presumably each of those panels has its own story to tell. And then when we get to the cross, you can see the carving there. I love the two cherubs, or two little angels, on the front of this cross. Very nicely done. And at the bottom we see it's for George Bull, 1907. But that's a fun design. This one's got a fleur-de-lis type design on the top of it. And we learn from the inscription, Samuel Simpson, for 43 years teacher in the junior department of Park Street Sunday School. This angel is leaning forward with her arms crossed across her chest. And beneath we have the names of Bertha Robinson, 1924, and her son, Colin David. Well, I'm really enjoying this cemetery. A lot of interesting memorials, a lot of quite elaborate designs. This is a very good cemetery to come and visit. Fortunately, she's lost her right hand, but it's a nice depiction of an angel clutching flowers to her bosom. And we come down, we read that it's Grace Lavinia, the wife of William Turvey. This is an angel pointing up to the sky. Being Luton, it's almost certainly one of the aeroplanes from Luton Airport that she's now pointing at. If we come down the memorial, we have a regimental crest, and the inscription is for Stuart Shoesmith of the 1st 5th Battalion of the Bedfordshire Regiment, and it seems that he died at Gallipoli in 1915, aged 21 years. We have an image here of an angel holding a young child in her arms, and underneath, Walter William, son of William and Emma Brown, who died in 1862, aged 9 weeks. And then we have beneath that Emily, died aged 15 months, and further names as we go down. This is a large monument, and the main inscription here is for the Nevilles, Maggie May and Frederick Thomas. But what interested me was the one further down. This is for their son Philip, their youngest son, who died 1945 in Sumatra while a prisoner of war in Japanese hands, aged 24 years. At the top of the graveyard we've got a lot of later memorials, even some very recent ones. There's a war grave here to Sergeant R. Warren, pilot in the Royal Air Force, 18th of March 1941, aged 21. And right next to it is Sergeant D.A. Taylor, UT Air Gunner, Royal Air Force, who died just 5 days later on the 23rd of March 1941, aged 22. A lovely image here of an angel kneeling, head bowed, bouquet of flowers in her hands. Very nicely done. Ellen Elizabeth Smith, 1930 something, and then Frederick Smith. Very distinctive memorial. We generally find one of these Art Deco style gravestones in each of the graveyards, but the interesting thing about this one is the inscription at the bottom. Michael Langley Harden, Sub-Lieutenant, Royal Navy Volunteer Reserves, killed while flying, 1942, aged 20. A large plot for this one to Aubrey Snoxall, 1894, and entered the homeland, 1953. Ever remembered with deepest affection by his wife Christine, and then Christine followed 20 years later. We seem to be collecting the mayors of Luton. Sidney Charles Hayne, OBE, Mayor of Luton, 1957 to 58, and he died in 1960. A horizontal stone for George Edward Dalby, Canon of the Chapter of Northampton, Parish Priest of Our Lady Help of Christians in Luton. In loving memory of my dear wife Nellie Thompson, 1943, aged 42, and all the trumpets sounded. This one depicts three figures. The middle one looks like Christ, and there's an angel on each side, and they're supporting a heart shape. And this is to Martin White, 1963, aged 37, and it says underneath, R.I.P. Our Lady of Lourdes. A very tall obelisk, and partway down we see the Star of David. And the inscriptions down the sides are a tale of calamity. Their first son died aged 23 years and 5 months. Third son 18 years and 6 months. Third daughter died 16 years and 3 months. Fourth and youngest son 20 years and 11 months. And then Thomas William Hazelgrove, 54, and his wife aged 56, so they didn't live to be great ages. And then on this side we have second daughter, 13.5 months, another one at 3.5 months, another one at 4.5 months, then William Case Hazelgrove, the father, I think, 49 years, not very old, then one aged 4 years, and the one aged 40 years. It is a most interesting cemetery, although I can't say it's very well looked after. I think it could be given more attention, but there are a lot of good memorials here. This one has the lady on the top, and a very sad memorial on the front face. Sarah, the wife of Charles Mies, she was only 33, and then their children, aged 2 years and 3 months, aged 2 months, aged 8 months, aged 9 years and 6 months, aged 3 years and 8 months. What a terrible rate of infant mortality. Now this one, it's difficult to get a shot on this because of the angle of the sun. But this is Anne, the wife of David Cookson, who died at the Priory, Dunstable, only 47. And then it lists the deaths of their children. And they're all young. The oldest is 18. Annie, Edwin, Annie Jane, Florence, Rosina, Charles, Edwin James, John Wright and Lillian Ann. And none of them reach maturity. Unbelievable. I hope you can read that. Well, I'm going to call that a day at Luton General Cemetery. Absolutely fascinating. A lot of good memorials to read and browse amongst. The cemetery could do with a little bit more care and attention, but I would certainly recommend this. I would certainly come back here. Luton General Cemetery. Till the next time.